Hi guys, welcome back. Okay, you're going to want to stick around to the end of this because I'm going to provide you with the news footage of what went on today. I moved here 15 years ago. Oh, by the way, let me stop. This is Colorit's new book, and it's inspirational quotes. Color of Inspiration, Volume 2, Inspirational Quotes. I'll put a quick flip through at the end of this, and you can get this on the Colorit website. I'll leave the link in the description. It's got all the bells and pings and whistles, fantastic paper, spiral bound at the top, perforations to pull the page out. Everything I always expect from one of their books, and they didn't fail again. They did great with this one. It's got a lot of really nice stuff in it. So, of course, I wanted to use this book to do a story time. And I moved to my house in the desert from New York, Long Island, 15 years ago. And I lived on an animal preserve. Basically, Long Island Sound is a preserve for all sorts of wildlife. And I mean, I'm used to raccoons and squirrels and all sorts of birds and herons and all these things getting into my yard, and it never even fazed me. 15 years ago, I moved to Nevada, and I'm going to admit that I did not know much about Nevada when I moved here. Almost nothing. And the reason we chose Las Vegas is my husband has an uncle who, in age, is closer to being a brother. And they were very close. And he had a family who was around the same age as our family. There's a generational skip there. Even though he's my mother-in-law's brother, he was closer to my husband's age. My husband's family did that a lot. They all had oops babies. So we came here to be closer to family. Not only that, we were having trouble with the winters, my husband's health, and the winters in New York. So I didn't really give it too much of a thought of what might be lurking in the desert. Because when I went to visit the first time, I went to the Strip. And that's all lights and built up, and we actually bought our house in one day. Our first day, we came to look for houses, stayed on the Strip. My cousin picked us up, and we went to a real estate agent, and by the end of the day, we bought our house. And that's how fast it was. And I had only been to Las Vegas a couple of times before. It wasn't my first time here, but I've always been on the Strip or nearby the Strip. So I didn't think of wildlife when it came to the desert or where I actually was. So I have a friend who lives here, somebody I was very close to when I lived back in New York. And they just happened to live in Las Vegas and was staying in New York temporarily. So when I moved here, he was really helpful to us, and he stayed at our house when we weren't living in it because we bought the house before we moved, and we were very close to him. And I came out to Nevada before my family did, just to set things up, so that when they moved in August, this was May, the house would already be well established and good to go. So during that time, my friend took me hiking in the desert. And that was the first time I had ever even seen a desert in my life, or even thought about what might live in the desert. So while we were hiking, he got a little bit ahead of me. And I will admit I was much slower than him and having a little bit of trouble getting over the rocks. And all of a sudden, I heard this noise. It sounded like I didn't know what it sounded like, to be perfectly honest. But I knew it wasn't like a wild animal or anything like that. And I called to my friend and I'm like, stop messing around with me. And he came out like a few minutes later and he was laughing. He's like, oh, it sounded just like a mountain lion, huh? And I'm like, what? I don't know what it sounded like, but why would a mountain lion be here? And he looked at me funny. And he was like, we're in mountain lion territory. And that was the first time I realized I'm not in Kansas anymore. So I've always had that in the back of my head, that we live where mountain lions are. But to be honest, I live in the concrete jungle here. I had more wildlife in my old house, living off the wildlife preserve, than I have ever seen in my neighborhood. I mean, technically, I see pigeons, and that's about it. You get the occasional spider, you know, some funky spiders like brown recluse and some, I mean, every day, all day, black widows. They don't even faze me anymore. But we don't get all that much other wildlife. And I know it's around, and we've got coyotes up in the mountains. And I went to Red Rock, which is not around the corner from me. It's not a horrible drive, but it's definitely not around the corner. And I saw some wild burrow and the occasional house gecko. That's the extent of the wildlife here, to be perfectly honest. It's here, but you don't see it because I live between the Strip and the 215, and it's built up and it's modern and it's gigantic concrete. We don't even have our own trees. We had to import trees to our land. We have like no nature. But the fact that we had mountain lions has been on my mind for 15 years, just thinking, oh my God, we live near mountain lions. And I know that sounds like a weird obsession, but that's just me. Now, I wasn't afraid of mountain lions. It's not like I go outside going, you know, hitting pans and, convinced that a mountain lion is going to get me. But it was just, you ever sit in your own thoughts and go, I have a really weird thought. Well, my backyard is my sanctuary. I go out there every night. I sit in my rocker out there. I have like a swing. And it's like a place for quiet. And I love the rocking. And it's dead quiet, especially since COVID. You don't even hear crickets outside. It's that quiet. So I guess in the news, they've been talking about mountain lions around here since COVID began, that the wildlife is starting to come closer to our little concrete jungle because they're looking for food. And, the more we encroach on their land, there's no place for them to go. So I saw a news article about this situation a couple of days ago. And I just happened to mention it to my friend Charmaine, that, oh, we've got mountain lions here. Now, she lives in England, so she don't have our mountain lions. So I thought it would be an interesting thing to share with her. And then I didn't think about it again. Last night, I was outside. It was about 3 o'clock in the morning, like I'm always outside at 3 in the morning in my little backyard, swinging on my swing. Just, sometimes I color out there at night if the weather is nice. And I didn't even think about it. Well, my daughter wakes me up this morning. She's like, Mom, there's cops everywhere. And I was like, what? She goes, yeah, there's cops everywhere. I'm like, why? She goes, there's a mountain lion on our street. It's like, what? Yeah. While I was sitting out in my backyard, in the front yard, there was a mountain lion. And the mountain lion actually killed, and I feel really bad, my neighbor's cat and ate it. So this morning, about 9 o'clock in the morning, they had SWAT teams and you name it. People with guns running through our yards, streets blocked off. It was like crazy. Helicopters in the air, flying and spinning around, and all because there was a mountain lion literally 200 feet away from me, killing my neighbor's cat. And I feel terrible about that because this cat used to come into my yard at night. It was a nice cat, but somebody's pit bull ended up chasing it up their tree, and by like noon they had cornered the cat in the tree, like right there. And the news footage is actually my street that they're filming on, like a couple of houses away from me. So I'm going to share that footage with you. But could you imagine if I had run into it last night? Oh my God, I was like, what is the chances that I'm sitting there talking to my friend about mountain lions and one shows up at my house the next day, literally at my, like, right there, like across the street, and that's the house it was at. I feel really terrible. I mean, this thing has been on my mind all day today because they killed the mountain lion, and that is one thing I would not have chosen, even though I had a slight fear of them. But I wouldn't say I was frightened of them. I know in my mind, okay, I read some things online. The chances of being hit by or attacked by a mountain lion, or even coming in contact with them because they're rare, is less than being hit by lightning. Like you would rather, like you have a better chance of being hit by lightning than coming into contact with a mountain lion. Which kind of freaks me out because when I was a teenager, I was hit by lightning. But that's a whole other story. Don't ever take your mother's wash in from the line in the middle of a lightning storm. That's all I could say. So I don't want to go too far into this because I want to show you the video clip from the news, which I'm going to put on right now. And then I'm going to do a quick flip through of this book. I think you're going to really love it. And I will see you guys in my next, well, I will see you after the news.
A mountain lion was euthanized today after it made its way into a residential backyard in the West Valley. It all started near Twain and El Capitan this morning at 9 a.m. Metro says the mountain lion was contained to a backyard while other agencies worked to try to safely tranquilize the animal. Then around 12:30 this afternoon, the lion was euthanized by the Nevada Department of Wildlife a little less than a mile from its original location. The Nevada Department of Wildlife said the mountain lion had been tagged before, meaning he had entered the valley before and had been released.
All these police cars just rushed up to us.
Get your dogs. They were saying, get your dogs, get your dogs, put them inside. And I was like, okay,
go back, go back.
Barking.
They seen him jump the wall and go into our backyard, and they said our pet bull was barking, and they think our pet bull scared the mountain lion up the tree.
And then all of a sudden we hear a gunshot, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And then I rushed to one of our windows in our house, and we seen a dead, what do they call it, mountain lion. So they shot the mountain lion, and we look, and there's just a mountain lion there. It was big, it was long. I would say
he was hiding in the tree in our backyard.
4 feet long, 5 feet long.
She rides her bike. She'll come outside by herself and ride the bike up and down the street. So now I'm like, oh God, no, never again.
Just to show you how close this thing was, here's my house. I'm in it. That brightly lit house was where the mountain lion was. So here's the book. I love it. And it has the regular Colorit introductory page. It was illustrated by, Hasby Mubarak. I've seen him do other books. That's not the first time that he's done a book for them. And the belong to page. I'm going to do this really quickly because I don't want to ruin all the quotes. I like to normally see the pages in a book, but when they have like quotes like this, it's kind of like I don't want to spoil all the quotes. So I just want to give you a taste of what you're getting. So this is the page that I'm working on. Oh, cleared up. Okay. Like, do you ever think like you manifest things by saying them out loud? That's kind of what I'm like thinking I did. Like, I talked to my friend about mountain lions, and the next thing I know, a mountain lion shows up. Is it my fault? Oh, I feel terrible. I can't even tell you how heartbroken I am that they killed this mountain lion. And I know in my heart that it was a necessary thing. And that's because they can't relocate them. If they're very territorial and they have very large, like, plots of land that they, or territories, and they fight to the death if another mountain lion goes into their territory. I know this is half on its side. They will fight to the death. It's almost cruel to just release a mountain lion into... Oh, this one looks fun. Time heals all wounds. So apparently this is a cat that had come into the Vegas area more than once. They tagged it, they tried to do a release, and he came back. He or she came back. And I feel like that's not like a death sentence, but it kind of is. It's kind of like when a bear becomes a nuisance and they have no choice but to euthanize it. That's what they did with this cat, is they tried it the first time. And they've been becoming, like, more and more coming down from the mountains. Now, we don't live all that far from the mountains. I mean, it's 7 miles, which technically is not a far distance when a mountain lion has a roaming area of 100 miles. But they're becoming rare. I'm not 100% sure if they're protected, but there's only like 30,000 in the United States left. And thinking about it, that's not a lot. And with the way that we're encroaching on their territory, and it's us, it's not them. It's totally us. We are the greedy mother effers that are doing it to them. All wildlife. We're destroying this earth with the way we are. And they're still building in Las Vegas. Just trying to move this. They're still building here. And there's no place, we're a valley. There's no place to go except for into the mountains. And that's where this wildlife is. So I don't know what the answer to the problem is. I mean, honestly, we don't need any more houses in Las Vegas. We got plenty here. And we don't have the land. They used to have a lot of land, but if you've purchased houses in the last, like, 20 years, unless you went out towards the mountains, we're all on top of each other. So, I mean, you can hear my next door neighbor talking. That's how close they are. But I feel bad for the cat that it killed. I liked that cat. And for my neighbor, you know, their loss of their beloved pet. And I know, well, you shouldn't let your cat out at night. Sometimes cats just roam. You don't really have a choice in the situation. The cat is meant to roam. And I know it's terrible, especially if you live places where there are coyotes. You really never should let your cat out. I mean, I know people who live in places that if their cat gets out of the house, they assume the cat dies because it's that bad. But well, my neighborhood's not like that. We're very, very quiet. And we don't have... This is so unbelievably rare. This is like you can win the lottery. It's easier to win the lottery than it is to have an encounter with a mountain lion. They're very elusive species. They don't show during the day. They're only out at night, which was another reason what was sad about this one being out during the day. Even though it did its killing at night and it was awake during the night, I guess it didn't find a place to hide out. By 9 in the morning, they had discovered it. I don't know. So my heart breaks for it. I just feel terrible about the whole situation. I can't get it out of my mind. So I will see you guys in my next video. Take care. Bye-bye.